Good morning. How the devil are we all doing this morning? I've got to just turn something off. That's better. I could hear myself in my own headphones. I do apologise. Good morning. How the devil are we all doing this fine morning? I hope you've all had a good weekend, a long weekend. Bear with me 1 second. I've still got sound coming through from somewhere else. That's better. So, yeah, hope you all had a good long weekend. Before we begin, now I've still got sound coming through from somewhere, and I don't know where it's coming from. Bear with me 1 second. I think I've got it. I think I had about 3 versions of this file open for some reason. Before we begin, before we which I hadn't even started now. Before we begin, I want to say a massive congratulations to a pair of Steves, Steve Williamson, often of this parish, and Steve Padmore, my mate from the Demolition world, both of whom got married this weekend. All the very best to both of them and to their respective wives. And now a very quick point of order. I need to keep today's show to about half an hour because I need to prep for tomorrow's deeply unpleasant medical procedure that I'm really not looking forward to. In addition, because of that medical procedure, I won't be here tomorrow, although I will be on screen in a very different way. If you stick around for my gripe of the day, I'll tell you more then. Now, without further ado, now I can't hear myself, which is fantastic. Without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. It is Tuesday the 30th of May, which means it is now 2 weeks, 14 days until the opening of Plantworks. How on earth it's the end of May, I have no idea, but welcome to the Breakfast Show either way. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, Bobcat gamifies machine operation, XCMG electric mining truck soars with the Eagles, making the grade with new case controls, plus a post-fire demolition is underway in Sydney, all the way down under, and we'll get to all that in just a second. But first, let us peer back through the mists of time to see what was going on this very day in history. On this day in 1431, Joan of Arc was burned at the stake by the English. She was just 19 years old. In 1842, John Francis attempted to assassinate Queen Victoria. Apparently, she was not amused. In 1883, the Brooklyn Bridge opened in New York. In 1966, English racing driver Graham Hill, Damon's dad, famously won the Indianapolis 500. And in 2003, the movie Finding Nemo premiered in America. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, let me remind you of that question of the day, and let me do so like this. Yep, that's right. What is your greatest TV moment? Is it a specific moment, a specific show? Let us know in the chat. I'm going to throw out a couple of my own. Personally, the last words ever spoken in the series, in the show Friends. If you know, you know. That was a good one. Personal favourite, though, would be there is an episode of The Newsroom in which Fix You by Coldplay plays in the background while the drama unfolds. And the opening monologue to the first ever episode of Newsroom as well. But let me know yours in the chat. What is your greatest TV moment? Would love to hear from you. I think there's been a few memorable ones, but also where stuff has gone wrong. There was a band back in the 80s called Galaxy, and the front man was known for doing forward flips. He did one on Top of the Pops live. It went wrong. It was never not funny. I also remember another one on Top of the Pops. Anyone remember the band The Associates and the singer Billy Mackenzie, who was basically lip syncing? The track was playing in the background, and he got a fit of the giggles and laughed the entire way through his own song. Awesome. If you've got any of those, I'd love to hear from you. Now, let's get things underway, shall we? Now, I am going to throw this up. The finale of Succession yesterday. I have to say, I've been following Succession. Basically, I've done the entire thing, but this latest and last series takes it to a whole new level. If anybody hasn't been watching it, you really are missing out. And I'm just going to rectify something. Apparently, I've been saying hello by using my buttons to everybody bar Dan. Apologies, Dan. I didn't see you go through the chat now. Now, this time last week, I was in Prague. Prague. With those fine folks at Bobcat. If you tuned into our construction equipment news show on Friday, you will know that we featured some of the highlights of that trip. You might recall also that I promised that we would get a bit deeper into some of the new stuff that we saw. And so we're going to start with a closer look and a more detailed look at the Max Control system that Bobcat has developed with the gaming giant Razer. Now, I can't play this video in the way that I normally would, so you're going to have to bear with me for just a second while I bring it up on my screen, because the file is absolutely enormous. Let's have a look, see if we can get this one going.
Behind me here today is our Max Control system, which is available from your dealership today. What I have here, though, is a video game controller from Razer. So what we did was added the ability to have joysticks and basically all the buttons that you would need to operate your machine right here on your controller. So that way you can use your Max Control with your gloves on, in rain, snow, with dirty conditions, it doesn't matter. It's going to give you much more comfort when operating and give you the ability to always keep your eyes on your machine at all times. So with the Max Control, that gives us a range of about 100 meters. And again, you can do everything that you'll be able to do in the cab. We can run all of our hydraulics right here as well. We can change our Bobcat, swap out connections, do all that. Additionally, on the back of the tailgate here, we have 2 radar sensors. And what those do is whether I'm using my Max Control or I'm in the cab, I can configure it to either stop when an object is behind the machine, it can slow the machine down, and then it can also just provide alert to the operator inside the cab. So again, whether I'm using this with my Max Control or whether I'm in the cab, you have that extra layer of safety to make sure your job site is as safe as possible and to give that extra boost of confidence to the operator and especially assist maybe some of those novice operators that haven't had as much experience operating machines. So this is kind of just phase 1 of what we want to do, but eventually with radar sensors, we want to include those on autonomous equipment. So whether it's a loader or an excavator, maybe a 0-turn mower, we want to make sure that we have these radar sensors on those because they will serve, again, as that extra layer of safety when using autonomous machines. So I'm just going to give it a quick spin. Come forward here. Can throttle it down again. I have my bucket float on here as well. So I'm going to drop this up. And there's your float. So for light grading, any finish work like that, again, you can still have the same abilities you have in the cab today, just with your gaming controller.
interesting comments in the chat from that, and I'm going to come back to my own in a second. There's Gary Muirhead. Morning, Gary. I can see the demolition industry using this bit of technology. So can I, and I'm going to come back to my thoughts on it in just a second. Andy Bullock. Morning, Andy. Razor gear doesn't last 5 minutes in this house. Can't see it lasting in outdoor conditions. Interesting point. And somebody else has made much the same comment, I think. Well, I can't see it now. Peter McKenna says, Razer are renowned for their controllers breaking down. I've had 3 lots with one of their own iPhones, or one of their own phones rather, and it was abysmal. Wonder how long before people are unhappy with them. With Bobcat, we shall see. What's the range of the controller? Great piece of kit. I'm fairly sure, I'm doing this completely from memory. I'm fairly sure somebody said 100 meters. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I'm fairly sure somebody said 100 meters. Now, my personal take on that was rather different, mainly because I've never had a Razer controller, so maybe I've not been spoiled in that way. I was more than impressed. In fact, it was the inspiration behind my weekly column this week. If you'd like to read that, please follow the link that I posted in the chat. It's called Bobcat Max Control. You need to subscribe to do this. Just to let you know, I've started a thing called Substack. Won't bore you with the details, but I'm posting all of what I believe to be the best of my writing, longer form, so longer articles, over on a thing called Substack. You need to subscribe. Won't cost you a dime, but it gives you access to all of that stuff free of charge, basically. So you can follow that link in the chat. It is called Bobcat Max Control. The actual article itself is called It's Not For You, Grandad, which I think probably sums up my feelings on things. Now, on with the show. This is the part of the show where someone will comment something along the lines of, yes, that's all well and good, but where is the electricity going to come from? Ken Hatcher, I'm looking at you. Yes, we're going to be talking about electric machines again. But this isn't just any electric machine. This is an electric mining truck from the fine folks at XCMG. Pretty good, right? The chat has been awfully busy. Andy Bullock is asking about the controller for that Bobcat Max Control. What protocol are they using for the control link? Is it 2.4 gigahertz? I don't know the answer to that, but I know a man that does. That would be Brody, who was actually featured in the movie there. I will have a word. Just on that subject, because there is quite a bit of chat about this, I do wonder if it's worth getting Brody or one of his colleagues actually on an evening show, so you can ask these questions yourself. But I'll come back to that. Another comment on the same thing. Dan Cullen, morning, Dan. At more than 20 meters, it could be dangerous. Viewing the machine and objects at that point may be difficult. I take your point, but for example, high reach demolition excavator, you've got people working 60, 70 meters away from the point of munching. So there's that one thing. The other thing I thought, going back to Gary Muirhead's point about this being particularly suitable for demolition. Imagine if you've got a skid steer on the roof of what you know to be a fairly unstable building. Put the operator in a cherry picker, well outside the range, just in case that building does fall, and you've got complete safety, line of sight, uninterrupted. Makes perfect sense to me. Al Grierson says the electricity of this caliber truck needs to come from overhead wires. Yes, that is certainly the way that some have gone about it, but I think the Chinese do like a battery. Dan, we fly a drone line of sight over 100 meters, and they are tiny compared to Bobcat machines, so would think it would be fine. Yeah, absolutely, totally agree. Stephen Guthrie says, surely the controller signals could be hacked, like most things. Another good question. I will ask Brody the question again. I'm going to ask if he wants to come on an evening show. We can aim all of these questions at him at that point. Why don't they do hybrid instead of electricity is dependent on lithium and battery packs, simply being more efficient? Well, given the fact that the Chinese own something like 80% of the world's resources of lithium, including those bits that are lurking over in South America, I think they're probably laid back about that. And this, I've actually got an outro that I was going to say. I was going to say, before anyone asks, I would guess the electricity for those trucks will come from the coal mines that China still is operating, which kind of negates the need for electric mining trucks. There is Gary Muirhead. Once again, he and I are of one mind. How we're going to combat the climate crisis when China is burning vast amounts of coal. It seems, despite the fact that we have these G7 and G20 meetings and everything else, and we have climate emergency meetings, it seems that countries seem to believe that the environment is only that bit within their borders. We've only got to worry about the sky above us and stuff like that. The rest of the world doesn't really matter. Until we've got a unified approach, I totally agree with Gary Muirhead on that. Ken Hatcher, they had diesel electric trucks years ago, so really they was halfway there 40 years ago. Quite right. Is there anything more we need to do? Going back to the Max Control, that's a possibility. I think that's the hacking thing, but with programming tech becoming more advanced, it's still a risk, but highly unlikely, he says. I would have thought it would have been better for Bobcat to get into bed with Logitech rather than Razer, just my opinion. Well, they are in bed, to use your analogy. They are in bed with LG on the OLED heads-up display. Who knows? Who knows where this will all pan out? Here's our mate Mantas. I wonder how many trips he could do. I guess that's the electric mining truck. A good question. And, you know, I think Dan's asked when Plantworks is. It is 2 weeks from today. Thanks for that, Lou. Slightly off topic. Learned over the weekend that Just Stop Oil are funded by dirty coal and oil magnets. I chuckled much. Funnily enough, Peter, I know Ken Hatcher actually posted something in our I think it was on the WhatsApp group this morning about the fact that Cardiff City Council has some electric, I think they're waste trucks, and they're being charged by diesel generator. There was, I'm sure I've mentioned this before, there was a concert for the climate or something along those lines. I don't know what it was called, in Hyde Park a couple of years ago. And there was everybody knitting their own muesli and being awfully kind to the environment and stuff. And around the back were a bunch of Caterpillar diesel generators pumping out the power for the light and for the sound as well. Yeah, I think we need to move on with one of these. know how academics, politicians, and the woke half of the media have an issue with demolition? How they believe it to be the very embodiment of evil, how it destroys all that valuable embodied carbon. Well, I have a question for them. Without demolition, how would they deal with this?
Crews are this morning back at the scene of a building that was destroyed by fire in Sydney's Surrey Hills, with fears there could be bodies beneath the rubble. Lara Vella joins us live from the scene. Lara, good morning to you. What can we expect today?
Davina, we are joining you from inside the exclusion zone, which is really one of the first times that we have been allowed such close access to this site here in the middle of Sydney CBD at Surrey Hills, following this enormous inferno that engulfed this building, which is more than 100 years old, last week. And the official demolition job, well, that will commence today, Davina. Of course, it is going to be a slow and methodical process, with New South Wales firefighters telling us their number one priority right now is safety. You can see at the scene here, some of the heavy machinery has been brought forward. A little bit earlier, Davina, we saw some of the equipment dampening down the debris that's already here, because once those walls do start to come down, we are expecting a large amount of debris and also bricks to be blown around as a result of it. We understand, Davina, one of the first things to go when they officially start the works here is that you might be able to see in the background. If you've been following the coverage of this fire, some of you might remember seeing that ute completely engulfed by that inferno. It was then crushed by bricks. That'll be the first thing to go before they eventually start to move in. As I say, safety is going to be the number one priority here, and so too trying to cause as little disruptions as possible throughout Sydney's CBD here. It's a multi-agency site. We've got firefighters here alongside New South Wales police officers and of course engineers. But at the same time, Davina, it is also still an active crime scene. As you say, 2 people still unaccounted for. We believe they were rough sleepers. We understand the search for those remains will commence once the walls have come down. There are still lots of road closures in place throughout Surrey Hills this morning, Davina.
And we'll keep across developments. Lara, thank you. DC Sylvia, see you soon.
First question, I guess, is where do they find Australian newsreaders? Much easier on the eyes than ours. The point I was going to make about all these complaints about demolition, it's like these people that complain about all the ineptitude and the shortcomings of the NHS, right up until the point that their appendix bursts. And then all of a sudden it's, we could do with your help. We've had some comments in the chat, and one in particular has really grabbed my attention. There we are. Peter McKenna says, for our group, who's going on what days so we can plan a meeting up? Would love answers in our WhatsApp group. He is talking obviously about plant works. I'll short circuit all of that, Peter. I'll be there all 3 days, 3.5 days actually. I'll be there all 3 days. But yes, use the WhatsApp group, decide when you're going to be there, where you'd like to meet, and we'll make it happen. Dan Cullen says, thanks for a great show today, Mark. Great content as always. Added multiple people to groups looking for work lately. Good to hear. China is working. Al Grissom holding out. Al says China is working intensely on green energy. They are adding 200 gigawatts of renewables this year. It's very easy to sit over here in good old Blighty, where we're on the cusp of running out of electricity ourselves, and point fingers at the Chinese for all the damage they're doing. They're working pretty hard over there, as Al has rightly pointed out. Mick Norton's in the house. Morning, Mick. Thank you for joining us. Let's have a look. We should have a discussion on your post this morning with regards to cyclists and the construction industry. I totally agree. For those of you that aren't aware, if you'd like to hop over to demolitionnews.com this morning, you will see that a person has been killed, young person, about 20 years old, I think, cyclist on an e-bike or an e-scooter, has been killed in a collision outside a Keltbray construction or Keltbray demolition site. One is bad enough, but Keltbray was involved in the death of another driver, another cyclist, way back in 2010. And about 3 months after that, there was an injury involving a cyclist and a Keltbray truck as well. So, yes, that discussion, not for this morning, because I do need to go and ready myself for tomorrow, which I'm going to come on to in just a second. The fire, oh my gosh, yes, that is bad. Dan Cullen says he's going to be there for 2, possibly 3 days, and says he was cycling to work for years. Thankfully, I don't have to. Do like a bike ride, but not on road, I'm afraid. Too dangerous out there for the likes of me, and I would take a lot of healing these days. Basically falling apart without the aid of a truck. Right, now we need one of these because we're getting very close to the end of the show.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
And we've already seen what Bobcat is doing with controls of the future. Now it's time to see what Case are doing with the controls of today on their latest C-Series graders.
Hello everybody, my name is Ralf Schütze. I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Grader, and I'm standing in front of our C-Series Grader 836 all-wheel drive. Today I'm very excited to introduce you to our new joystick controls. Our new joystick controls cover, of course, all the functionalities which you already know from our mechanical control grader. But the new joystick makes operating those functions not only easier than before, but it makes operating a grader much better than before. But we have not only changed the way of operating, we have made more. With the new joystick controls you can not only do your work, you can also drive. Thanks for watching.
And don't forget, the Case Roadshow is coming to the UK in September. Off the top of my head, I think it was the 14th and 15th, maybe the 13th and 14th, doing it completely from memory. We don't actually have any news on the locations yet, but I will keep you posted just as soon as I hear anything. And now it is time for this. My gripe of today is actually my gripe of later today. As soon as this show is over, I am required to drink a litre of some concoction that will give me almost instant diarrhea ahead of tomorrow's planned colonoscopy. According to a friend, that concoction will take about 30 minutes to weave its magic before, as he put it, all hell breaks loose. Can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to it. At 4 p.m. this afternoon, I have another litre of the stuff to down, which means another round of all hell breaking loose. According to the leaflet very kindly sent to me by the NHS, this is likely to result in some soreness, and they have recommended the liberal application of Vaseline on the damaged area. I'm trying my hardest not to be graphic here. I realise some of you may be having a snack about now. So having spent most of the day on the loo and having possibly passed things that I ate in the 1980s to ensure that my back end looks like that of a baboon, I'm then going to hospital tomorrow, where an entire camera crew, a lighting man and a sound assistant will go potholing. My gripe, I guess, is this. I realise the camera crew need to get a good, clear look around. But is a day of potentially firing internal organs from my back passage really the best way to prepare my entrance for the insertion of sodding great camera? All of which is to say, I won't be here tomorrow. Instead of my face appearing on your screens, my arse will be on some poor doctor's screen instead. I was going to say I don't know who I pity the most, but I do know. Me. Anyway, that's my gripe of the day. Brought a tear to my eye. I'd love to hear yours. What is it that grinds your gears, gets your goat, and generally butters your parsnips? The Daily Gripe therapy session will return on, let me see, where are we today? It's Tuesday. I'm off Wednesday. On Thursday, the Daily Gripe will return on Thursday. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like, but very briefly over into the chat to round that out. If you can't stick around, please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, your colleagues. If you do have the time and the inclination, I'll see you very briefly on the other side of this for the Craic. But first, here is a word from our key show sponsor. Morning, gang. I'm going to have to rattle through this very, very quickly because I do need to go and get myself prepped, I'm afraid. Mick Norton, let's hope the camera isn't a brownie. Yeah, I'm rather hoping things have moved on since then. Let's have a look. I'm going to go right back to the very beginning. I'm really going to rattle through these because I do need to go and drink this jollop that they've given me. Peter McKenna was the first off the mark this morning. Morning, Peter. Hope you're fit and well, my friend. Dan Cullen, who I missed, I do apologise. How is everyone doing today? Well, apart from me, I think everyone's doing absolutely fine. Gary Muirhead is here as well. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, guys. Guys, just to let you know, and speaking of Gary and Dan, I've got your respective prizes from last week bagged up. The weekend got away with me, so I will try to get them in the post, assuming I can still walk in a roughly straight line after tomorrow. I'll get those in the post for you tomorrow. Good morning, Mark, says Al Grierson, all the way from luxurious Luxembourg. Ken Hatcher is enjoying the sunshine. Jim Turner is in the house as well. Morning, Jim. Counting the days to Plantworks Construction Exhibition, and it is, to save you the job of counting, 14. It is 2 weeks today. I'm super fine and dandy. How's you, Dan? Glad to hear somebody is super fine. There is our friend Mr. Brock, Jeff Pinion. Morning, Jeff. Thank you for joining us. Stephen Guthrie's in the house, as is Josh Allen. Morning, Josh, and morning, Stephen, as well. Peter McKenna, I managed to remember to join you today. I've set an alarm. It's my show, but I set an alarm just to remind me. All okay at this end, says Ken Hatcher. Morning all, says Kerry Jones from Welsh Wales. Our friend Mantis is over on LinkedIn. Morning to you, sir. Congratulations to both Steves. Unusual to have two friends getting married on the same weekend. Even more unusual that they're both called Steve. But yes, they're both, I'm assuming they're both bound for their respective honeymoons. If anyone gets a chance, if anybody follows Steve Williamson on Facebook in particular, go and have a look at his wedding photographs. He managed to get his tilt rotator very much in the photographs. I'm sure that his tilt rotator supplier, and there are others available, will be very pleased to have seen it. Let's have a look. For some men, Mark, your procedure is an added bit of pleasure, but for most, it's at best a violation. It's fine, a tad uncomfortable, but you will manage. I'm more concerned with how I ungrit my teeth after it's all taken place. Listen, I'm a man of a certain age. It's one of those things that you have to deal with, I suppose. Good morning, Dan popped on. Good morning, Dan popped on while I've got 10 free minutes. Gary Muirhead says, now we're going back to best TV moments. And a lot of you have gone the self-serving route, apparently. Gary Muirhead says, I was in a promotional video for a company called APC Track Services operating a road railer. My 5 minutes of fame, or frame, should I say. Well done. If that's a deliberate pun, congratulations. Best moment on TV, finale of Succession yesterday. Very, very good indeed. There is Glenn Johnston is in the house. Glenn Johnston, should I say. And another self-serving one, appearing in advert on a Granada report for the Lytham Festival. I was at the time a member of a Western display team, cowboys with guns and pyrotechnics doing reenactments for charity. So your favourite moment was you on the telly, was it? Okay. I can see the demolition industry using the Max Control from Bobcat. Yeah, that sparked a fair bit of discussion. We'll come back to that. Luke Carney's question of the day. Me appearing on 01 for London TV programme from Amnesia in Ibiza, whilst apparently off sick with a bad back. Busted. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. I actually have a friend who was caught out in much the same way. He ducked out of work to go to a football match. And where was he? He was on the telly watching the football. Yes. I'm not going to dwell on the razor thing now because we haven't got time, or I haven't got time, but I will have a word with Brody and I'll come back to you with more details. I'm going to rattle through. I think I've done most of these. Have to admit, I'm a fan of Logitech. There are certain brands that I do like. Elgato will provide the camera and the light and my Stream Deck as well. Big fan of theirs. Logitech was my webcam of choice for quite some time, so I can understand the desire there. I wonder how many trips he could do. Good question. I'll have a word with XCMG, see if I can find an answer on that. I'm rattling through. As I've said before, diesel theft has been rife for donkey's years and the police don't really seem interested. It's high time construction and road haulage companies came together to get something sorted regarding diesel theft. Yeah, it's a bit like plant theft, isn't it? It's almost a case of, well, it's inevitable, we'll just have to find ways of dealing with it after it's happened. Leprechaun on a push bike. Okay, moving on. I spent thousands of hours on graders, Blornox, BK12, Cat 12G, Aveling, Austin 39H. Would love a spin on the case grader shown today. Listen, keep an eye out for this grade rope or the case open day. You never know, we may be able to organise that. Thank you very much indeed for that, Jim. I'm hoping luck isn't required, but you know, we shall see. It's not the camera going in that hurts, it's the legs of the tripod on the way back out that will make your eyes water. Sorry, couldn't resist. Listen, as somebody that has to take a tripod through airports a lot, I can already picture the scene, and I rather wish I couldn't. Rules to legalise e-scooters are now unlikely to put before Parliament before the second half of 2023, very earliest. More likely to spin into 2024 or beyond. It still remained a Department of Transport, Department for Transport priority, some priority. Congratulations to the two Steves. Lou Carney says, did he have pants on under that kilt, I wonder? I'm more than happy to ask, but I'm going to say that you asked. All the best. See, there are times when I regret being quite as open as I am, and that's one of them. All the best for tomorrow, bottoms up. Thank you for that. Good luck with the unpleasantness today and tomorrow. Bizarrely, I'm kind of dreading the unpleasantness of today more than I'm dreading the unpleasantness of tomorrow, on the basis that tomorrow I'll be sedated. Today, I'll be wide awake. Question of the day. Telling a Blue Peter presenter he won't get his effing Blue Peter badge unless his camera crew get off my plant training area. I never made it on screen. Yeah, I've done a few of those. I'm going to tell you very, very quickly a quick tale. Back when it was the weekend that they were launching the National Lottery. I don't know when that was. It feels like it's about 20, 25 years ago. And I was walking through Covent Garden in London, and there was a TV camera crew with, roving reporter with a mic on a stick. And I sort of dodged one way, dodged the other, but she captured me and she said, the National Lottery starts this weekend. If you won £1 million, how would you spend it? And I went with my gut and I said, cocaine and hookers. And she just went to her film crew, cut. Quite proud of that. I didn't make it onto the TV either. Been on it a few times since because I've toned down my stuff. But yeah, okay, people. I need to go and drink some of this awful jollop, and then I got to go and make a long appointment with my toilet. I promise never to mention my rear end again after the next 2 days. I promise. People, go and have a fantastic day. It's going to be better than mine. I'll see you all again on Thursday, by which time hopefully there'll be more of this stuff and a bit less of my stuff. We shall see. Till then, everybody, have a fantastic day. Thanks for all the jokes. It cheered me up knowing. I'll see you soon. All the best.